The wilderness doesn't need to kill you. It just needs to make you doubt what you already know is true. I've had bears close enough to smell. I've driven roads in weather that should have put me in a ditch. None of it stayed with me the way one afternoon did, afternoon where I found out that getting lost isn't the scary part. The scary part is finding out you're not moving where you think you are, that a straight line isn't straight anymore, that the ground itself might be putting you back somewhere on purpose. For core, this happened to me 10 years ago, deep in the Yukon bush. I still don't fully know what to make of it. See what you think. There's a specific kind of quiet you only get after fresh snow, not peaceful, muffled, like something's got a hand over the world's mouth. I've hunted grouse in the Yukon my whole life, and I always went out the morning after a big snowfall. Fresh powder holds tracks. That was the plan that day. Find tracks, find birds. Simple. Ken, I didn't plan on the snow taking something from me instead. It was fine, dry powder, the kind that doesn't pack, doesn't hold a shape. I noticed it almost immediately. I'd glance back over my shoulder and my own footprints. Footprints I had made seconds ago would already be softening at the edges, sinking back into white, erasing themselves like the ground didn't want a record of where I'd been. I want to tell you, I stopped right there. I didn't. I told myself it wasn't a big deal. And I kept walking off trail, deeper into the bush, further from anything with a name. No cell signal out there. Never had been, so that wasn't unusual. What was unusual was how still everything felt. No wind, no birds calling. Just the flat crunch of my own boots and my own breath fogging in front of my face. Over and over, the only proof I was still making noise in a place that had gone completely silent around me. About an hour in, pushing through dense brush, I stepped through the fork of a Y-shaped tree. Didn't think twice about it. You push through 100 things like that in a day of bushwhacking. 10 minutes later, I stepped through the exact same tree. I need you to sit with that for a second, the way I had to. Not a similar tree. Not a tree that looked like the one before. 2. The same fork, the same angle, the same low branch I'd had to duck under twice now. In a landscape with no trail, no path, nothing circular about the route I thought I was walking. I had been moving in a straight line. I was certain of that. And somehow the woods had folded me right back to a point I'd already left behind. That's when my heart didn't just sink. It dropped straight through the floor of me, and something colder rushed in to fill the space where my certainty used to be. The sky was flat, gray, sourceless, no sun, no shadows, nothing to tell up from down, alone east from west. I turned in place, once, twice, and every direction looked exactly like every other direction. Mountains ringed me in on all sides, identical, patient, offering nothing. And for one bad second, standing at that tree for the second time, I had the distinct, prickling sense that I wasn't the only thing that had noticed I was back. I didn't hear anything. I want to be clear about that. There was no crack of a branch, no shape at the tree line, just silence, but silence that felt occupied. The kind of quiet that isn't absence, it's attention. I've read, since that panic in the bush kills people faster than cold does. Because panic makes you run, and running blind is how temporarily turned around becomes gone. So even with that prickling feeling crawling up the back of my neck, I made myself do the one thing every instinct in my body was screaming against. I sat down. I found a low rise, just enough to feel chosen rather than collapsed onto, and I sat with my back to it. I didn't examine too hard why I wanted my back covered, and I ate, and I breathed slow and deliberate, until the shaking in my hands actually stopped instead of just looking like it had. Scanned for landmarks. There weren't any. Just those mountains, watching from every side like an audience that had already seen how this ends. So I waited and listened and tried very hard not to think about how a tree I'd already passed had somehow been waiting for me to come back to it. Eventually I heard it, a jet, high and distant, dragging its low growl across the cloud cover. I caught sight of it and made a bet. Something that size was almost certainly running the approach into Whitehorse, the only strip built for it out here. not certain. Just the only thread I had in a place that had otherwise gone dead silent around me. I took it. I walked under its path for 40 minutes, and every few steps I broke a branch and pointed it back the way I'd come, a thin white trail of fractures through the dark, breadcrumbs left by a version of me that might not make it, for a version of me that might come looking. I stopped often, listened hard, told myself the feeling of being paced, just out of sight, just behind that last stand of spruce, was nothing. Cold plays tricks, fear plays tricks. I believed that as hard as I could. A second plane, an hour and a half later, held the same course. I trusted the pattern and kept walking, 3 hours lost by then, manufacturing calm one slow breath at a time, because nothing out here was going to hand it to me for free. And then, a sound that didn't belong, an engine, low and mechanical, passing somewhere ahead. A road, seeing maybe a handful of vehicles a day, and I'd just heard one of them. I didn't move on it yet. One sound wasn't proof. I waited 45 more minutes, doing the same ritual. Breathe, listen, mark a branch, don't run, until a second engine confirmed it, that the silence hadn't been playing a trick on a man who badly wanted to hear. A car. I moved fast after that. The trees thinned, the light changed, and then, all at once, I was standing on packed gravel instead of unbroken snow, almost 4 hours after that tree had first shown me its fork twice in the same 10 minutes. Kink. Even the road wasn't done with me. It ran north-south. I'd gone in walking west, which meant my truck was a straight 50-50 guess, left or right, with nothing to break the tie. I guessed. I was wrong by about 2 kilometers, and I spent another 45 minutes finding that out the hard way before my truck finally came into view, sitting exactly where I'd left it that morning, patient as everything else out there had been. It's been over 10 years. I carry a compass now, always, no exceptions, because if I'd known which way was east that day, none of the rest of it would have mattered. I could tell you that's the whole lesson. Bring a compass. Don't trust your tracks in powder snow. Simple, practical, over, but I still think about that tree sometimes. How a straight line brought me back to a place I'd already left. How the quiet felt less like nothing was there, and more like something had gone very still on purpose. I've been in that bush 100 times since, in worse weather, further off trail, and I have never, not once, felt that particular silence again. I'd like to think that means something. I try not to think too hard about what. I carry a compass now. Every trip, no exceptions. That's the practical lesson, and it's a real one. If you spend any time off trail, get one and learn to use it before you need it. A 50-50 guess on a gravel road is not a plan. But the compass doesn't explain the tree. It doesn't explain how a straight line brought me back to a place I'd already left, or why the quiet that day didn't feel like nothing was out there. It felt like something had gone still on purpose and was waiting to see what I'd do next. Nay, I've been back in that same stretch of bush more times than I can count since. Worse weather, further off trail, further from the road. I have never felt that particular silence again. Maybe that's just the story panic tells you afterward, so the memory makes sense. Or maybe some places only show you what they are once and let you go, just to see if you come back. If you've ever had a moment like that, somewhere in the woods or the water or the dark, where the explanation you gave yourself afterward didn't quite fit, what you felt in the moment, tell me in the comments. I want to hear it, and if you made it this far, hit subscribe, because this isn't the only place I've found the silence occupied.